Um, and there we go. All right. And my name is Terry Martin. I'm with the COIN leadership as well as with ORD2 in Indivisible down in Jackson County. And we're delighted that you're here tonight. We're here with Attorney General Dan Rayfield, who just took this position just a couple of months ago. How many weeks do you have under your belt so far?
Oh, I think I mean, we were very fortunate. I mean, even during the campaign, we were preparing for this space and then having transition from the legislature, there's a nice continuity. I mean, it's not a nice continuity following the November election. I think there are other continuities we would rather have. But I
Yes.
think in terms of, the smoothness of it, I don't think we could have asked for anything more.
Wonderful. So you hit the ground running then.
Very, yeah, very fortunate. I'm happy to dive into that. People might be very interested in it, and what does that look like?
Okay. I will remind you that the people on this call are not lawyers and they're not um, law enforcement, and they're not, they're mostly just people that are concerned about their neighbors and their family members and their friends who may be part of the vulnerable communities that are going to be targeted by this administration. And I know a lot of the focus is on immigrants, first of all. And so could you tell us a little bit about what Oregon's sanctuary law is? What does it cover?
Yeah, I think and you'll hear when I talk about this, I will talk about it in just kind of very generic terms. The first thing to think about is just kind of like background and history, right? We have in Oregon one of the oldest sanctuary laws in the nation. So just keep that in context. What does that really mean? That in practice, we've had Democratic presidents, we've had Republican presidents, and we've been able to coexist with each other for a really long period of time with the laws that we have in place. And so you might say, what specifically is the sanctuary state law? And here in Oregon, essentially what it is, and what I want you to think back as to when the nation was founded, there really is this separation between the roles and responsibilities of federal government and state government. So here, and you think about the 10th Amendment and what that really has to do with about the federal government trying to use state resources to do federal things, right? Federal responsibilities. And so in Oregon, we have this law that says that we as a state, as a policy, are not going to use state resources to implement federal immigration laws. And so what does that effectively mean? That means that if they come and they ask a given agency, or if they want to ask law enforcement to enforce immigration, our law says, no, we don't want you to do that as a matter of public policy. We would like you to focus on the state responsibilities that you have. Now, there is an exception to that. And another good example is they might say, we'd like to request information from, say, a given individual or an agency. The law says no. Again, that would be a state resource moving over. We would rather use our state resources for state purposes. In this context, what there is an exception where a federal, someone who's enforcing, the immigration laws can get a court order. And under those circumstances, right, we would all comply with a court order under various circumstances. And so that is kind of the dynamic of our sanctuary state law. Pretty simple, and it's been existing for a really long period of time.
Isn't there a second version of it though, or the Sanctuary Promise Act? What did that do to the original sanctuary law?
So again, I would not overcomplicate it. It's very
Okay.
simple in terms of we don't exchange information. We use state resources for state purposes. It just really refined things down a little bit more in terms of how we're moving forward. So.
How strong is this Sanctuary Act, do you think? How how strong can we be at this point in the state of Oregon? And people feel like we're safe here. Are we safe?
Well, I mean, those are really broad terms, and so I think in what I would focus in, so a lot of the questions that we get would be are our sanctuary state laws constitutional? Right? Sometimes it can be confusing where you've got a conflict, right? Where you have a federal government saying, "Hey, we'd like to punish a sanctuary state with funding issues or other issues along the line." Now, that's something the Trump administration did do during its first 4 years. And they tried to go after some funding streams that were tied to states with sanctuary status. And we were able to prevail in the courts. However, what the main thing that people really want to know is And I think the most present, it was about a week, a little more than a week ago, you might have heard that the Trump administration sent a memorandum out talking about, well, maybe we'll be able to criminally prosecute individuals for not complying with a lawful immigration request. We believe, in the way that we've looked at it, is because of the 10th Amendment, because there is this escape valve where you can get a court order. We believe that our sanctuary status or sanctuary laws here in Oregon are entirely constitutional. And again, it really is this idea that you cannot force the state to use state resources to implement federal laws, right? We really do want that separation as the foundation of our democracy. It's incredibly important. So,
Can
and
you
you
talk
can
about the
extrapolate that out too. Like, so just a good example is you're talking to folks in the community, you really wouldn't want the federal government coming in and say, hey, let's use the Salem police to really start implementing some federal policy, right? Because the Salem police have the roles and responsibilities to keep the community of Salem safe, right? In these very different things. And so this is merely kind of, extrapolation of that.
Can you talk about the role of county sheriffs in this? Because I know there's been a lot of talk about how they often see themselves as protectors of the Constitution, and as elected officials, they're hard to hold accountable. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and just for people who have resources, you probably have more questions. This is very high level. And as you're thinking and you have questions, there are resources, and you can easiest thing to do. We have toolkits available that kind of dig a little bit deeper into some of the nuances. And so if people want to do, some homework on your own time, you have a sleepless night and you want to look into it a little bit more, you can Google. I believe it is Oregon Sanctuary Toolkit, and Leslie can put it in the chat. But that's where you can go on to the Oregon Department of Justice website, and there's some frequently asked questions. There's a toolkit. It can be very helpful if you really want to dig in a little bit more. But to your question, Terry, about you have sheriffs who are elected, they're independent elected officials, and they have frontline law enforcement officers. Right now in Oregon, for a state official, it is against the law to, again, as a matter of public policy, to use state resources for immigration purposes. And so in this scenario, this would be where there is guidance out to law enforcement across the state about what are your roles and responsibilities under our sanctuary status law, as well as the complications that can come with the federal government. And so right now we're hoping, and there is no indication yet, that we're going to have, say, a rogue sheriff or someone else who's just going to ignore our sanctuary status laws at this point. So, of course, things can always change, right? And they do. And I think that's the one thing that I would say, because this is being recorded, I wouldn't, if someone is watching this, months down the road, I think it's incredibly important to note that the environment that we're in right now is changing by the day and by the week. And so some of the things that we say tonight may absolutely not be relevant or helpful more a week from now, let alone 2 months from now. So just for context, if someone is finding themselves watching this.
Does the sanctuary law have weaknesses that we might need to address, perhaps through the current legislature?
I think everybody is going to have different opinions on what a weakness may or may not be. I think the sanctuary law is fairly clear in its intent, and I think that it is effective, and I think it's constitutional. And so, from that basis, I think it is good. There are some who have wanted to have conversations about what happens when someone doesn't follow the sanctuary law. Right now, in that violation, what should we do as citizens in this state, right? And there's a whole bunch of different options, right? So if you are a police officer and you're not following it, you are certified under the Department of Public Safety Standards and Training. DPSST is an acronym that is often thrown around, and there is connectivity in there. Some people are very interested, and some people will say, "Hey, maybe we should go farther. Maybe we should look at that from someone who isn't certified under those circumstances. And what does that really mean if you're not following that law?" And so that is an active conversation that people have. What I would put out for this group is that oftentimes it can be very difficult. And often, if someone does violate the sanctuary status law, often it's not intentional. right? It is an unintentional thing that just kind of goes on in the practice. We have tremendously, well-intentioned and amazing people that work for the state, work for cities, work for counties, and they're just getting through their day. And sometimes you can start a conversation in a way that you may not recognize it. And especially now in confusing, where the Trump administration is talking to the DEA and saying, hey, you need to spend a little bit of time working on immigration. That can be confusing, right? Because in a normal drug enforcement conversation with law enforcement, you might have a normal conversation where you're not violating the sanctuary status. But if they veer into a different lane, intent can be very challenged, right? And I think we're very fortunate to have law enforcement in this state that do want to comply with our laws and are doing their best under the circumstances to do that. Of course, just like everything, there is always exceptions to the rule, right? Like there's a lot of amazing, people, that make fries in this world, and then there's some people that don't make great fries. So it's just life. I don't know why I use that reference, but I did.
Have you had dinner?
I, I did cook my son French toast tonight. So
There you go.
yeah.
Well, I know that the Trump administration has taken away I guess, the protection for hospitals and schools and churches. How is Oregon, does Oregon have a plan for that, or are we just assuming that their executive order is going to override our own, I guess, beliefs or values, or?
Yeah, and so this is a really good question. I think another thing to keep reminders, we're being, as I mentioned, that toolkit and those resources that we have, the Department of Justice website, those are continuing to be updated. So as the Trump administration shifts, and that was a policy decision that was made by the Biden administration to really protect what we would kind of consider your churches, your schools, kind of places that are really essential services are provided and kind of in a safe space like that. And so those are kind of off limits. The Trump administration has gone back where that is no longer the case. And so the protections that are available to all of us on this call are available to immigrants that are in our state as well. So the Constitution, in terms of those things, unlawful search and seizure, those protections apply to all of us, and they apply to everyone under those circumstances. The way to think about it that same way is to think, is this a public space? If this is a public space and you are a federal law enforcement officer, you have the ability to be there, right? And then you must follow the normal constitutional procedures. And it is a federal responsibility for them to enforce immigration law under those circumstances, right? And they have the authority and ability to do that. That is the policy decision of that federal administration. And Democrat and Republican enforce those laws. Sometimes they just do it a little bit differently, like we mentioned under the Biden and Trump administration. So you're going to see those same constitutional protections are there. The one thing is you're going to see public and private spaces, and you draw those distinctions as well. Obviously, there's a different set of requirements, just like we think about in our homes, right? Law enforcement can't just come into our homes. And so there are the distinctions that you have with those protections.
Are schools considered a public space?
They are.
They are. And churches are also considered public? Or are they considered
They
private?
are.
They are.
Public. Yeah.
Okay. And a hospital, even though it's a business, would be still considered public as well?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Education for me. All right. So I know there are a lot of teachers and health professionals and things like that that are on this call tonight that I'm sure are concerned at this point. And especially, I think that teachers in the schools are pretty much terrified at this time. It feels almost like sometimes Oregon has like a bit of a target on its back, I think, with the Trump administration after, I guess, what happened in Portland and the whole Antifa thing. Do you feel like we have a target on our backs here in Oregon?
No. And I would take a quick step back in terms of like when you think about what is open to the public, right? So what I realized when I said that, in some of these places that might be very nerve-wracking. I think you mentioned that, Terry. Again, our Constitution is there to protect us from unreasonable search and seizures under these different situations. So you can't just, for instance, you wouldn't have somebody coming in and just doing random walkthroughs in your classrooms. That's not going to happen, right? So a lot of the normalcy that we have right now is going to continue to exist. Those officers still have to follow the Constitution. Yet nobody no matter who you are. If you're the president, myself, or anyone on this, in the call, if you're acting, as a government official, under the color of law, you cannot go in and violate those things. So there are protections in place for a lot of these spaces. So know that, so when you ask, is there a target on Oregon's back? There are always going to be, I think it's very easy to speculate and throw guesses and about whether there may or may not be a target on anyone's back, or there may be a focus. What I would say is there are many sanctuary states. There are many folks that have the same ideology as Oregon in the way that we elect our officials. We are no different than a lot of other places. You could pinpoint certain events that have happened in our past, but we can also pinpoint events that have happened in other people's past. We are a smaller state when you compare us to, say, folks like New York and California. You're equally situated. I think there are going to be issues that may feel like we're being targeted, right? So if you look at some of the executive orders, it really does feel like they are targeting the values of Oregon. And I would argue that yes, they are. It's not necessarily that they're targeting Oregon. They're focused on a value set that clearly the state of Oregon and our population firmly believe in, right? Whether that's reproductive health, whether that's gender affirming care, those are equity, in all spaces. There are just going to be some areas where the government is going to try and be incredibly creative to implement, the federal government administration, Trump administration, could be creative to try and implement their policies in different ways. Our responsibility, the Attorney General's office, is to make sure that when the state is harmed, when individuals are harmed, when they are threatened to be harmed, and in the manner that they're being harmed is being unconstitutional, people are not following the law. It is our role to then step in to either prevent that from happening or to stop it from happening. And that is kind of what you've seen over the last couple of weeks. The first lawsuit we had to file was the day after the inauguration, and that was on birthright citizenship. And it's the concept, and I see a lot of heads nodding, but that lawsuit was filed on that following Tuesday. We filed in Washington. Some folks filed East Coast. We were able to get an order very quickly, that really demonstrated you can't overturn 120 years of case law. You can't overturn 120 years of presidents, Republican and Democrat, who have interpreted the Constitution as is and merely write an executive order to shift the nation's interpretation of the Constitution. That is incredibly dangerous in a democracy, and a judge agreed with us. The other one was the federal order. So these are the type of things that we have the ability to do. There was a federal order last week that caused an incredible amount of chaos across government, across nonprofits, across educational institutions. Then we're calling it the federal funding freeze. Under that situation, again, we're ready. We have basically there are the Democratic attorneys general, and we've been working since the summer being prepared for all of these things because none of these ideas are really a surprise. They've been talking about them through the campaigns. Some of these things were even done towards the end of the first Trump presidency. So we were able to file a lawsuit. We were able to get a temporary restraining order stopping the federal funding freeze. So that way we can pivot. Now, that doesn't mean if Congress appropriates money in a certain way, that they can't implement some of those same things, because they can. They control Congress as well. And that's the long term about how do we plan as a state. The other thing, just for folks to know, some of the things that we will think about, Schedule F. A lot of people, what is Schedule F? Those are the protections for federal workers. Trump, at the end of the 2020, his first 4 years, revoked that. Okay. And effectively, that's kind of like taking your union status away, right? With the stroke of a pen under that scenario. We examined whether states were the right folks to actually challenge that in court. And what we realize, and the way you might say it, is that people lose their jobs. Do the states have a loss of income via tax income? And you're trying to find what is the nexus for the state to participate. What we felt that it was actually best for the federal employee unions to be the ones making the case on that. So right now we have partnerships not only with attorneys general that have values that are aligned. You have partnerships with other what I would call uh, groups that have similar sets of values that are able to then step in when appropriate if they are the best ones to succeed when a law has been violated or the Constitution has been violated. And it's an incredible partnership that we have. Our office convened a cabinet of individuals that are likely to be impacted by a lot of the executive orders, by some of the laws that Congress can pass, as well as some of the memorandums that we've seen take place. And so that includes folks from like Basic Rights Oregon, that includes your Planned Parenthood, healthcare, education, and even law enforcement. Because if you think about frontline law enforcement officers, they actually need to have certainty in how they're supposed to act when, to your point, Terry, you might have a sheriff that feels differently, right? Sorry, that was long-winded, but I thought I'd give you a little bit of context of the collaboration that is going on right now across the country.
It's a perfect segue into my next question because you're talking to over 200 activists on this call and many, many more once it's recorded and shared. What can we do to help you and to help support the state of Oregon and the laws and the sanctuary and all of the rights and the freedoms that we value? What can we do as activists to help you?
It's a wonderful question. I think it is, and it's not an easy one to answer, I think is the first part, because there's a lot of things that we can do, and some of them may not necessarily feel helpful in the moment as you're doing them, right? But collectively, it makes a big difference. I think the first thing is that as a community in Oregon that we really try our best to speak with one voice and and take care of each other in some of these issues that may not readily impact us on a day to day, but then in collectively together and having our voices heard does make a difference. And the reason I say that is we have a legislative session that is going on. And a lot of these issues, a lot of various issues can impact us on a day-to-day basis are within the legislature. And obviously that is, we are in a very different lane in the Attorney General's office, right? It's an executive function, it's a legal function. However, there are things going on in the legislature I know, I've seen a lot of you already active in the legislature. So I know that personally. I'm just continuing to encourage, your engagement there. In working as folks work to strengthen laws, as folks work to strengthen budgets, to be able to enforce various things throughout. And I think you'll see that throughout the session if you're with the different groups that you're a part of. There's opportunities as a wonderful outlet for this 6-month, 5-month period of time where it is very difficult as legislators at times because you're getting pressure. Being in the day-to-day of what is going on, it can be very wearing. It's kind of like a marathon, right? Halfway through, you're still feeling really good. 3/4 through, and you've lost all your energy. And so I think there is as you're thinking about that, that is a wonderful place to engage. I think for us in our space, I think it is more or less we're all sharing the same messaging that is out and making sure that we're kind of all in Oregon acting to dispel misinformation. We're finding that is, and also trying to move. It's very easy. We've seen chaotic energy to engulf conversations, right? And so trying to have stable leadership, talk about that we're watching every executive order that comes down. We're watching all of the actions. We have incredible communication, and we're doing our absolute best to make sure that the Oregon that we know and love stays the Oregon that we know and love, right? And moving forward. And so you have people doing this. If you are hearing or seeing things that are inconsistent with that, just communicating with us is another incredible feature that we have. The groups that we've set up, our cabinet is really a hub, which a lot of the groups that connect into that. So for instance, say Planned Parenthood is also a part of another hub. And so they're on the ground gathering information from other different spaces that we aren't readily connected to. And so as you're hearing things, if there's things that we may not be aware of, connecting and making sure that we are aware of what's going on is incredibly helpful. And again, I think part of our responsibility in this space is also trying to dispel some of the misinformation. And it can be incredibly challenging when you have a president that just says things For instance, we're going to dismantle the Department of Education. You got to do that through Congress, right? You can't do that via an executive order. But if you are a teacher, if you are a student, if you are someone that it is incredibly jarring to hear these things come out of, the President of the United States. So if there's other things that we can be helpful in providing information, getting feedback from you all too is incredibly helpful. So that was, it's like I said, it's not a great answer, but it's, I think that's the best that we have.
What is the best way to reach you and your office?
So Leslie can put it in the, oh goodness, in the chat. We have a couple of people that focus on this, and I'm trying to, there we are. And she can, and I think it can go in the chat. If not, I will have Leslie reach back out via email, and we'll get you a good email that folks can use with questions or things along those lines. Please be patient with us. As you can imagine, the volume of emails and things that are coming through right now are immense. And we do have a limited staff, and so we want your emails, but just be patient with us, and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about tonight that you'd like everyone to know before we sign off?
Terry, were you a reporter?
Yes. How do you know?
Okay, because your last question. You gave yourself
Many
away.
years teaching newspaper and then teaching journalism at the local university. So yes, what do you want to tell us?
So the funny thing is that, other people on this call may not know, one of the last reporters that reporters almost always ask, is there anything else you want us to know that we didn't cover, or some variation of that? And
You
so
knew it was coming, didn't you?
no, I
Well, you
didn't.
didn't
I
know it was
didn't
coming because you
expect it.
didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't expect it, so that was horrible. And my training has always told me that no, I should always answer no to that question.
Oh,
That way, I just don't start saying random things. But with that said, I appreciate the partnership. I appreciate like living in a state like Oregon. I appreciate all the support. These are incredibly difficult times. I'm reminded every single day that even within our Department of Justice, the people who do the frontline work are incredibly, even though they are incredibly impacted by what is going on a national basis. We have a hotline that we should remind you of a bias hotline that was overwhelmed, right? And is continuing to be overwhelmed in a space where it's needed, now more than ever. And so there's a lot of really good people doing a lot of good work in the state. And so it's just the impacts of this, are far reaching. So.
well, we have a whole army here that can write letters to the editor, stand on the curb with signs, whatever is needed to help you. So know that we're there, and we'll make sure that you have our contact information as well.
Well, thank you for having us. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming tonight. We really do appreciate it. And we hope to see you again and have some really good news, and good achievements, I guess, next time we talk.
I think that the wonderful thing is we live in this state. The values are incredibly clear. We have wonderful majorities in our legislature. We have a Democratic governor. We believe everybody should have health care. We care about our environment, and we got people who are working towards that. And so this is, I think we will, and we've got an incredible amount of Democratic AGs across the state working towards the same thing. So it's challenging, it's tough, but there is optimism. So and hope in that space.
All right. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your
Take care,
time.
everybody.
All right. Take care. All right.
Good
Did you learn?
job.
Wow.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It was a lot. There was a lot to go through. I didn't get to go through everything, but I hope everybody learned something in the process and have something to take away at this point that you can do. We are going to continue the conversation a little bit and talk a little bit about what COIN is doing. And one of those things is our a rapid response type of training and that we're trying to get into. And Tim, I think, is going to tell us about that.
Yes. So obviously, top of mind across the state is the concern for our immigrant neighbors, friends, and loved ones even, and how we can protect them. How can we do do our best and our part in protecting them and keeping our state a welcoming place. So we are in coalition with the Oregon for All Coalition. We're part of that, and that is a group of organizations across the state being mostly organized, thankfully, by the ACLU to help coordinate the effort. And it is in the process of launching so that we will have coordinated efforts. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, but what I want to tell you is how each and every one of you can help right now. And that is, there is the PERC hotline, which is the Portland Immigrant Rights Coalition. I'm going to put that number in the chat here. Whoops, wrong one. I just put the COIN team sign up. I'm going to put that in the chat for you to put into your phones. And this is already up and running hotline, and they're very responsive. And what they really need from us, and what we will do as a rapid response team under the ACLU and with ACLU training eventually, is that as we launch that program, is, I'm trying to get the number here, sorry about that, so I can get that out to you. They're looking for us to
I just changed the chat so everybody can see it, Tim. So
oh, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. That's, well, I'm getting a weird pop-up right now.
We can see that.
You can, which one can you see?
I can see it on your screen.
The Zoom
Right.
Workplace or the phone number?
I saw the phone number. It
Oh,
was
okay.
an 800 number.
Yes. So that's the PERC hotline. Put that in your phones. And what we're looking to do, what they are hoping that we can do is anytime and you personally cite ICE, you've actually confirmed that the ICE is present, that you call up, and this role is called a verifier. Now, it's not a legal observer. There's a light lift. You are just going to verify that ICE is present. You're going to want to give the exact location, the time, number of officers, number of vehicles, even, and any other details surrounding what you might witness. And obviously the PERC hotline is busy. And what we really want to try to do is dispel the rumors, right? What they want to do is be able to verify, have people responding without innuendo or rumor or any of that, right? Just giving facts. So for any of you who want to help out here and are out in the community and detect see ICE, please call that number and report it, and they will take it from there. So that is a go right now. This role of verifier is part of the Oregon for All Coalition, and we will all be trained eventually. We will have trainings. We'll get that all out there to you all through the newsletter to let you know when those are available. So that's the program is still waiting to make sure that they have all the capacity and capabilities to do it effectively, but that is going to be coming soon.
Someone just asked in the chat if this is just for Portland at this point.
Thank you. It is statewide. Despite being the Portland Immigrant Rights Coalition, they are taking care of all of Oregon. So thank you for that.
The Attorney General couldn't seem to come up with his contact information. Maybe you can do better, but we have yet to see anything. So we're looking at you, but we don't see a number.
Oh, it's in the chat. Do you see it in the chat?
Wait a minute.
You have to have the chat open over on the side.
Yeah, go down on the bottom of your bar there. It says chat. Click on that, and then it will open up over on the right-hand side of your screen, and you'll be able to take that number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Click on the word chat and it says show chat, then you'll see it over there. For those of you who don't see it, it's 1-888-274-7292.
You,
Thank
Thank you.
I'll say it again, 1-888-274-7292. And it's not a bad thing to put that into your phone, because it's going to be a situation where you happen to see something and you're going to panic.
I'm going to interrupt here real quick
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that's not the number that I have in my phone that I put in my phone.
What
And I
number?
just went Yeah, I just went to the PERC website and it's a different number, Tim. So I don't know.
That I got from the ACLU.
Oh, that's
Ah,
interesting because
So can you,
the number that's on their website says call the PERC hotline is 888-622-1510.
can you type that in there? And
I
let's just,
can in just a second.
yeah,
I've got to get back out of that screen. It's on because I put it, I'll tell you my story. I put it in my phone in my contact and I accidentally dialed it and I hung up real quick because I didn't want to dial the PERC hotline. About an
mhm,
hour later, they called me to check in and see if, check and see if what I was reporting. And I said, I'm reporting that I'm an idiot. I accidentally dialed you. So it is the right number. So let me put it in, there.
okay.
I don't know where that other number came from, but
we will
1888.
we will double check them and make sure everything's in the notes tomorrow when we send up our follow-up. How about
Yeah,
that?
Yeah.
yeah. And for those where you know where our, if for those of you at coinoregon.org, you can go onto our website and there are teams established, obviously covering a lot of different issues for Oregon. There's a place there where you can join the rapid response team. And if you click on that box, we will be engaging you and obviously providing, more resources, more information. And I should say that this program there's a secondary program being developed right now called Protect Oregon Coalition, and that is a even bigger coalition with endowments and even engaged in that. And that is protecting all of us. That is protecting certainly the LGBTQ community, people of color who become targeted, and union leaders, educators, all of those. So I just want you to know that there are programs coming online that will allow us to be hopefully effective. We'll make sure we get the absolute right number. I want to,
Okay.
but you hold that number there, and apologies if it is wrong. I want to call that number and see if it is. They have a number of numbers, but either way, more to come. So just sign up, get engaged, and we'll keep you posted.
This is an evolving situation. I'm just going to say that. And there's a lot of different groups working on a lot of different levels that we're playing, 10 level chess right now. And a lot of times some people are doing things on level 1 that we don't know about on level 10. So at this point, we'll do the best we can to be a clearinghouse for you and make sure you have clear direction on what you can do as activists and as well as of good citizens of the state. From there, we want to talk a little bit about what's happening if Indivisible Oregon's doing. If it did, I don't know how many of you watched the national call on Monday night. There were, I think, 40,000 people on that call, and the call by Indivisible was to visit your Senate offices. And we're under a foot of snow here in Southern Oregon, believe it or not. So it's been a little tougher for us, but there is a plan to go to an office tomorrow by Indivisible Oregon. Is Erica on the line somewhere?
Yep, I'm here.
There
Hi,
you
Terry.
are. Hi.
Hi. Thanks for the introduction. Yep. So we at a handful of organizers with Indivisible Oregon were one of the tens of thousands of leaders that were on that call this past Sunday, just a couple days ago. And after we got off, we were, frantically messaging each other on Slack and said, "How do we do this? What do we do?" And we are organizing a meetup tomorrow, Wednesday at noon at Senator Wyden's Portland office. We're going to meet up just in front of it in the courtyard. And together we are going to push both Senator Wyden and Senator Merkley to do everything in their power to stop the Trump-Musk power grab and we'll thank them for the work that they've already done and lay out specific tactics recommended by Indivisible to slow and stall and generally throw sand in the gears of Trump pushing his agenda forward. And I saw from Indivisible National, we are one of hundreds of indivisible groups across the country. Maybe there are others in Oregon, which is super exciting. But tomorrow we're going to be in downtown Portland, and we would love to see you. And I've actually got a sign up link, which I will put in the chat. And oh, we are going to have field representatives there from both Senator Wyden's office and from Senator Merkley's office. So we're super excited about that. And as one of my fellow organizers said, Gail Learman, who many of you know, she articulated it beautifully when she said, sometime I'm going to paraphrase her and not be quite as eloquent. She said, sometimes it may feel like when we're advocating to our Democratic senators that they're already doing the good things and what's the purpose? But these senators are on the front lines of this fight to protect democracy. These are the ones that are going to challenge everything and are going to stop Trump from doing what he's doing. And if I can pull in Terry's comment from the beginning of the call, we want to empower those folks so they can talk to their colleagues in DC and say, our office is getting swamped with complaints about private citizen Elon Musk accessing data. That's what we want them to do. We want them to be bold and fight because they're right on the front line. So that's what we're doing tomorrow, and we would love to have you join us. I'm going to put the link in the chat.
Thank you. Mary Chapin said that they had a meetup with Indivisible Sisters did today and Vocal Seniority with Senator Wyden's staff in Central Oregon. Even though
Awesome.
what?
Oh, yes.
Good job. And it
Yes,
says, got
thank
something
you. That's
from
awesome.
Salem Region Indivisible that says they're going to be visiting Salem offices tomorrow morning. So if you're anywhere near a Senate office, you can plan a field trip. If for some reason you can't make Indivisible Oregon's, it's not going to hurt to stop by later in the week and present and say that you care and that you want them, as Ezra said today, to shut down the Senate. They just need to stop voting on nominations. They need to just stop everything. And so anyway, so if you can call your senators, do it. If you can visit your senators, do it. That is our focus for this week. It's like trying to drink out of a fire hose right now. We know it. Every single 5 minutes, there's a new weird thing happening in DC, and I know that it's freaking everybody out a little bit. We're going to remind everyone that the most important thing we can do is to work together as one voice and to focus on one thing at a time. I mean, I feel like sometimes, we could go 50 different directions depending on the moment, but if we'll follow Indivisible's lead, it's the most important thing. And that if we have thousands of people calling their offices about the same thing, then we are a wave at that point. They will hear us. We'll be able to get things done. If we all are scattered and talking about different things every time we call, then there's no consensus there. There's no wave to push them over. So remember to watch Indivisible, watch Coin's leadership, watch your newsletters locally, and make sure that you take the time to educate yourself a little bit on these issues. But at the same time, if you're calling, all you have to do is say, I'm not happy about this, and you need to know it. And that's pretty all the much they're going to do. I mean, there's somebody sitting at a desk doing a tally. Okay, there's a person for and there's a person against. And that's pretty much all they're marking. You can call and say, I don't like Elon Musk and what did Merkley call them today? The muskrats that are inside the Treasury Department. And I want them out. I don't want them near my money. And that's all you have to say. Your name, your zip code, I'm not happy about it, and be done. You can be off that phone call in 45 seconds. You don't have to go into long-winded explanations. You don't have to give your background. But if you have a personal story, if there's something in your personal life at stake in the issue that we're talking about, you can say it. And I think they want to hear it. I mean, if it's a veterans issue and you're a veteran, then say, hey, I'm a veteran and I really, really care about this. Or if it has something to do with Medicaid and you're on Medicaid, you can say, hey, my life depends on this support. So saying that is important as well, because they know that you're not just reading a script off something that we gave you to say. Right. But in the meantime, just remember, there's some small staffers sitting there just doing a checklist, one side or the other when you call, and that's all you got to do. And you can make all three of those calls in under 5 minutes easily. So don't hesitate. All right, in terms of I'm sorry, Mary Buckley had her hand up at one point. Mary, did you have something you wanted to say? If you can unmute. If not, we'll rotate back to you at this point, once you figure it out.
That was an error, Terry. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I was just trying to actually applaud Erica's announcement about tomorrow's meeting at the senator's office. That's all. It was an error on my part.
Thank you very much for chiming in. All right, so at COIN, what we're going to be doing is trying to give you all the tools you need. We're going to try to give you the issues of the day. We're going to be trying to keep you motivated. We're going to try to keep you educated and activated. And we know there's a lot of people that are really incensed right now over what's happening. And we want you to channel that energy in a way so that we're all going the same direction. So we have power in our collective voice. And one other thing we're going to do is we're going to have a COINvention this summer, and I'll let Teresa talk about that.
A COINvention is on the way. We are planning a weekend of learning, and we're going to end it on the Monday. So mark your calendars and just get ready. Barbara, do you have something that you need to say before I go on about the weekend, or is it something that can hold? Okay. Sorry, it just popped up. So mark your calendars for the weekend of June 6th through the 9th. We're going to meet in Salem and have on the Friday will just be a meet and greet, dinner and relaxation. And then Saturday and Sunday are going to be kind of school days in conference. We're hoping to get some leaders in various topics that who knows what's going to be happening by June, what will be most important, but we'll be looking for people to come and speak to us, have various types of classes, maybe some de-escalation training, and just a full weekend of getting to know each other across the state, as well as learning and becoming better at being an activist. And then follow it up on Monday with a lobby day, because the legislature will still be in session. So we'll be able to talk to our individual reps and let them know how we think, because they'll be getting very close to the end of session then. So hopefully we can influence them on some of the important bills. I personally have just started the planning for this, and I would love a good team. If you happen to have event planning experience, give us an email at coinleadership@gmail.com and sign yourself up. And also, if you happen to have an idea of somebody that you think would be a dynamic speaker at this weekend, maybe help connect us with them and give us your ideas to help make it the best that it can be. And so in the meantime, that's all, but it's going to be building as time goes on. So I hope that we can get a team of, 5 people or so to be planning it. There's going to be a lot of work to do. And so that's it for now. And I'll let Barbara ask her question.
Real quick, someone asked if we're going to be making part of it virtual. We'll do everything we can to do that. We have a pretty healthy budget to be able to broadcast, I think, from the event. So we'll do everything we can to include as many people as we can.
And we might possibly, if money is an issue, we do have a budget from national that we might be able to help sponsor you, or at least give you a partial sponsorship so that you can attend. And we were hoping Salem, it's only a 4-hour drive from Southern Oregon, so I assume it's pretty central for everybody to get there, and just a half-day drive if you can't make it for the whole weekend.
Yeah, and someone else has just pointed out that it would be lovely if people could open their homes to travelers for the convention as well. If you're interested in helping us organize that, that would be great. I know we did that when we had one in Ashland many years ago. Had a lot of people in our homes and became really close friends with them by having another indivisible person from across the state stay in your guest room is a great thing. So if anybody lives in the Salem area or within that area, let us know. That could be part of our planning. Okay. So who had the question and they disappeared?
Barbara did, Isaacson, but now I don't see her.
I'm here.
It's Bobby.
Oh, there you are.
Barbara.
Here.
Yeah.
I just wanted to remind everybody that Indivisible Oregon puts out every Tuesday an action to call our senators and representatives. And we're trying to do additional ones now, which are called immediate actions, trying to respond to the absurd chaos that is characterizing Washington. So if you look on our website, there are calls about various nominees, and we're trying to keep up with all of the different ways that that Trump is violating the Constitution and statute and everything else. So check out our webpage, and hopefully there'll be 2 or 3 items at least every week that you can call about.
Awesome.
And we've been asked several times today about the protests that are going on tomorrow at state capitals, the 50-50. And the truth is that we don't know who's planning it. It's not part of our coalition with Indivisible. That, you know, we were on that coalition call on Sunday. There were about 50,000 people, I think. None of the organizations that were on our coalition are part of this planning. It might just be a grassroots thing that's burbling up, which could be fantastic, but it very well could be bad actors trying to lure people in to start riots so that the Insurrection Act can be instated. So we don't know. We're not encouraging you to go. If you feel like going, be very cautious, have your eyeballs out, and be ready to flee if you need to. Stephanie.
Yes, Teresa, could you say your email again? I just had an idea for
Okay, I'll put it in the chat. It's for COIN. So hang on one second. You'll be writing to all of us on the team. Yeah.
The Gmail address, and it's just COIN Leadership. The word COIN Leadership at Gmail.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the best. You can reach any of us at any time. There are now 8 of us now in the steering committee, so to speak, in the leadership group, and we all monitor that all day. So if you have a question about anything you heard tonight, or you have an idea, anything like that that you need, please send us an email. We will see it. We promise.
Oh, very fine. Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Anything else that we haven't covered? That's my reporter part coming out again, right? Anything else you want to say?
That was wonderful.
A
That was cute.
clearinghouse question. It's called a
I know.
clearinghouse question.
That was great, Terry.